I think the presentation itself will answer most of it, but we will also have plenty of time to do a Q&A when the formal presentation's over. So there's three things we want to talk about in general. First of all, restricted and permitted activity. There's the state, when the governor ordered the shutdown order, there was a lot of confusion as to what kind of construction activity would be allowed to continue, what type of businesses are considered to be life-sustaining, and there was a lot of confusion concerning those particular issues. And I'll deal with that specifically. Then Betsy's going to talk about our L&I operations, what we have continuing, what we're doing with the applications that came in prior to the start of the eclipse, online permitting, which went into effect on March 16th. She'll talk about that. She'll talk about how we can schedule construction inspections, extensions on permit expirations, and then talk specifically about eclipse issues. So the very first part of this about restricted and permitted activity. Construction is essentially shut down in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania unless you meet one of three very specific criteria. Number one, your development needs to be a medical, pharmaceutical, or healthcare facility. That's number one. Any work involving those type of construction sites is allowed to continue without any disruption or interruption. Any permits that we issue for medical, pharmaceutical, or healthcare can proceed right into construction. Number two, if we also can allow work to occur on an emergency basis. And there's really two kinds of emergencies here. There's the ongoing jobs that may have issues with water infiltration, or there may be structural issues that they got the framing to a certain part of the project and weren't able to complete it to make it structurally secure. Other issues about, maybe it was an excavation next to an adjoining property and it needs to be shored up to prevent damage to the adjoining property. Those kind of emergencies for that involve pre-existing job sites, you can write to us. We have an email box that we created to deal specifically with those types of issues, and give us the circumstances. We'll review them, and if it truly is an emergency, we'll give you authorization to do the work necessary to abate that type of emergency. The second type of emergency would be if there was a breakdown in say a component of a HVAC system, or a water heater breaks, or you have issues with broken water pipes, clogged sewers, things of that sort. Those are also true emergencies. We have a permit process to give permits out to the proper licensed trade, and that work's allowed to also continue. We have a process in place to review any imminently dangerous or unsafe buildings and issue make safe permits for that type of work. And Betsy will get into those specifics also. So medical, pharmaceutical, and healthcare is number one. Emergency situations are number two. And then we have a third type of specific waiver for construction work, and that's for essential infrastructure. So basically, essential infrastructure is considered to be affordable housing, and the Department of Planning and Development are issuing waivers for affordable housing projects that meet their criteria, and the Department of Public Property is issuing waivers for continuation of city public works projects. All told, the essential infrastructure projects, there's about 90 of them, and L&I has issued approval for about maybe, I think we're up to about 24 now of emergency type situations. So we're in the low hundreds in terms of active construction projects that have gotten approval from the department to either continue work or to abate situations that occur on site. Now, to give you a little bit of perspective, before the shutdown occurred, there was about 9,000 construction sites in one form or another throughout Philadelphia. And so we're looking at the very low hundreds right now in terms of what's allowed to continue operation. So the state has been issuing waiver letters. They've yet to give us a list of waivers that they've granted. We've looked at them. Some of them are waivers for instance, for a construction company. Now, a construction company can get a waiver as a life-sustaining business because any one particular construction company may be involved in an emergency situation, may be involved in essential infrastructure, but the state waivers are being misinterpreted to mean any project that the construction company is working on is also approved to continue without any limitations. And that's simply not true. The state also will issue a letter, or had issued letters specifically waiving a particular job site. So if you just have your construction company and you have a waiver letter for your construction company, that doesn't particularly mean that you have a waiver for any specific project. So you're going to need to check in with us to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing is something that the city can endorse and will not subject you to a stop work order. On a minor basis, we're also allowing environmental remediation projects to continue. Primarily, these are occurring in the schools. With the schools shut down, it's a great time for them to get in there and do their asbestos abatement, their lead abatement, to check the water quality, and to fix any issues that they have with environmental issues within schools. So we are allowing environmental remediation work to continue. And lastly, we're allowing, if you have a life safety system, you can continue to maintain that system, test that system, certify it, and do any repairs that are necessary to keep that life safety system operational. So obviously that's sprinklers and fire alarm systems. So if you have any questions or concerns about whether your project is allowed to continue, or if you have an emergency situation and you want L&I to grant you approval to do specific work, submit those requests to code issues at phila.gov. Within about 24 to 36 hours, you'll get an answer back from us. What you need to provide is the job site, the address of the project, the permit number, details of what it is that needs to be done. Send us a few pictures, and we'll consider them. We'll consider them on an individual basis. And I would say of what we're receiving so far, about 2/3 of them are being granted permission to continue work activity. So that's what we're doing in terms of the construction projects that are out there. When right before the shutdown occurred, we made a decision to launch phases 3 and 4 of Eclipse. Phase 3 was the online permitting system. Phase 4 is our code enforcement module. We were able to put those in the production on the Sunday, March the 15th. And the system's working out pretty well. So anyone that wants to apply for permits can apply for permits, even if it's not a healthcare facility or an emergency project or critical infrastructure. If you want to get your permits in place and be ready to get into construction when this crisis is over, you can submit all your documents online. We'll review them. We can issue permits during this shutdown. It's just if you're not one of those 3 type of activities, you can't start work until after the governor rescinds rescinds its shutdown order. So that's what I wanted to cover. I'm going to turn this now over to Betsy, and she'll get into the specifics of what we are able to have operational. She was able to set up her staff with remote access. So she has A lot of staff members, dozens that are working at home, successfully reviewing applications, certification statements, and licensing renewals. And she'll give you the good news on what's up and running and how to address any issues that come up. So Betsy, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. So Commissioner mentioned all of our services are still available electronically. All new and renewal license applications can be filed online. The new and renewal application, well, actually the renewal applications are supposed to be submitted online anyway. We don't accept postal mail for renewal applications. So this isn't a tremendous change, but we did not issue any extensions because we're continuing to process licenses. So all contractors must renew their licenses on time. A lot of contractor licenses expired on March 31st, and we're finding that folks haven't renewed. It makes sense because they're not working. However, it does impact the permit process. So we can't generate a billing statement unless the contractor has an active license and his insurance is current and his taxes are current. So we are finding a number of licenses that have not yet been renewed. And again, I don't think the contractors really understand the impact. So if you are making permit application, please encourage your contractors to renew their licenses as soon as possible, so there's no delay in you receiving your permits. Design professionals, attorneys, and PA home improvement contractors must also register their PA licenses. So a design professional or attorney trying to make application in Eclipse, whether this is online or when the building reopens, must be registered. If a PA home improvement contractor is performing the work, they do not have a Philadelphia license. They are actually acting under the authority of their PA registration. They will also need to register before we can issue the permit or generate the billing statement. So for designers and design professionals and attorneys, it's any new applications. For PA home improvement contractors, though, it's any permits that have not yet been issued. So if you have a billing statement, the home improvement contractor was already named, they now have to register before we can actually issue that permit. All electronic applications are processed within 3 business days. I think we're doing a pretty good job of staying on top of it. Some things may fall through the cracks, but for the most part, we are meeting our service level agreements for online applications. Okay, permitting. Also, all permit services are available online. Easy permit applications, use permit applications, electronic plan submissions we're accepting. We are still allowing applications to be accelerated. Right now, we're still working through our paper backlog, which should end this week. We'll be all caught up this week. So we're still allowing accelerated applications to be accepted, but probably in 2 weeks, we'll put a halt to that because we expect to be under the 10-day service level agreement that the accelerated application guarantees. So I'm pleased to report that property certs are auto issuing. I think things are working nicely. Those that come in for a review are reviewed within 5 business days. Actually, right now, we're probably same day or next day. So right now is probably the best service you'll ever receive for property certs. We are still getting a pretty high volume, about 60%, 70% of our standard volume. I just want to note a couple of things. If you haven't already made application, you do have to register for an Eclipse account to apply for a property cert. Once you pull the property cert, it's always available on your homepage, so you can search for it at any time. You don't have to worry about finding the email that was sent or did you get the email. Also, if there's any open violations, they will appear before you pay. So if you have any questions regarding open violations as part of a property cert, you will see it before you make payment. And I highly recommend that you contact us before making payment because it's much easier to address before your payment's processed. Certificates of rental suitability are also available through the website. There was some issues the first week. It went public before it was really supposed to, but that's been operational for quite a few weeks now. We are issuing operations permits and certificates of occupancies as well as lawful occupancies. So essentially, we're offering our full complement of services all through the online portal. We are maintaining our service level agreements, and in most cases, I would say now is the time to make application because we are exceeding our service level agreements. I also want to note, if you want to file online, we have been offering Eclipse information sessions. We've been offering them about once a week. They fill out pretty quickly. And we have specialized sessions on electronic plan submission. That's a 1-hour session, and I would encourage you to attend if you make application. And we are also going to have a session specific to zoning in about 2 weeks. Because while Eclipse didn't really change our policies, it did change the processes quite a bit. So we receive a lot of questions. L&I is operating. Our whole plan review staff is working from home. We were fortunate enough that they were already set up to function remotely because they already do work from home under the accelerated program in a lot of cases. So this was a pretty seamless transition for L&I. It's not the case with most departments though. Most of the employees are not equipped to work from home. So it's been taking some time to get up and running. Most departments are or preparing to perform reviews received through Eclipse. So for instance, Historic, they've been reviewing everything that comes through. Streets is reviewing through Eclipse. There have been some bumps, but they're very responsive when we follow up. Planning and Development, they are getting online. They've started to do some reviews and they should be operational pretty soon. PWD is conducting reviews online, but they may not be issuing permits. So if you need like a feral connection permit or water discontinuance permit, you might not be able to pull that. But essentially, you have to review the individual departmental websites for current services. I think it's working pretty well. A lot of the other departments are relying on Eclipse to get the information. But if it's a case where you cannot get the other department's review, then L&I will continue with the review, but we will hold issuance until that departmental approval is received. So we can get to the end, but we still can't issue your permit without the code mandated approval. I also want to note, we've been getting a lot of questions regarding appeals. The ZBA is not meeting at this time, the Zoning Board of Adjustment. There is information on Planning and Development's websites. So essentially all the appeals are frozen. So that includes actually appeals against the permit and requests for variances and special exceptions. So at this time, they are not meeting. Your refusals will not expire though, and you will also be able to appeal permits after the 30-day period. But again, that's a planning and development function, so please check out their website. We get a lot of questions as well regarding amendments to previous approvals. Eclipse was never intended to expose paper applications that you filed before or after the launch of Eclipse through your web portal. We've been manipulating it to allow it to do so. And one of the things we didn't count on are amendments, because if you were filing an amendment to a paper application, we expected you to come in person to file that amendment. So that's no longer the case. You will not see an application specific to an amendment online though. You will have to contact us. And I make reference to a number of contact portals, Contact Us. At the end of this, there is a table that we will show that explains where you link to, where you should submit each request. It's a lot, but most of it's temporary just to assist you during the shutdown so that your issue gets to the right person as quickly as possible. So as the commissioner mentioned, make safe permits, we're still processing those. You can't file those online because the system is designed to stop you from doing so. So essentially, Eclipse, once you get to the end, if there's an unsafe or imminently dangerous condition on the property, it will stop you because we want you to come in person. We want to talk through what the issue is to make sure that you are set to remediate as quickly as possible. So you cannot file those on Eclipse. However, you can make an appointment through our website. You have to have a structural violation on the property. So if L&I issued a violation, it's the same policy that we applied to, waiving certain permit requirements, like we will accept an engineer's report in lieu of plans if there is a structural violation on the property. You can make an appointment through our website, and we have a dedicated examiner who will meet you at one of our satellite locations, 15th and Cecil B. Moore. And he's been going out there about twice a week. So you send the appointment request, the examiner will follow up with you directly, and you can arrange for a date and a time. And again, just because we're issuing permits, it doesn't have an impact on the stay-at-home order. We just want to make sure that you're set to resume construction as quickly as possible once the order is lifted. Okay, paper applications. We have continued processing paper applications, and we've been reviewing these for the past month. So they still are paper. So we are moving paper around. Examiners arrange for drop off and pickup of your paper applications. So if additional information is required, the examiner will contact you directly with those requirements. And there's a few ways that you can resubmit the information. And this has changed because initially we thought this would only be a couple weeks. So our position has changed a little bit. If the application only requires forms, meaning 8.5 by 11 sheets, you can email those to the examiner. You can't email the examiner plans. They do not have the ability to plot out plans or make copies. You can also submit plans via postal mail to the MSB. So there has been a little bit of confusion surrounding this because only our front entrance is open. So you may want to provide specific direction to your carrier to go to the front entrance and go to the security desk. If the door is locked, there still is a security guard there who will come to the door. And now we've actually opened up the option to resubmit all of your permit documents through the web portal if additional information has not yet been submitted. So essentially, if you're waiting to submit additional information, there is a form again on the website that you can submit. We have to do some things to your application to make it available on your web portal. You just have to be careful to resubmit all permit documents because essentially you are changing from paper to electronic. We don't have the ability to scan any documents that you've already provided to us to make them electronic. So it would be just your action converting the paper application to electronic. Now there's been a lot of questions surrounding approvals. Again, our examiners have been working hard, and in most cases, they have been reviewing the applications in time. But we wanted to do a little bit more than just send you an email saying like, hey, yeah, it's been approved. Come see us whenever the building reopens. We wanted to give you some sense of assurance that the permit approval is final. And if you need to, for financing purposes, you can also pay for the permit and download the permit. The plans are retained at Municipal Services Building until the building reopens, unless you have a project that's permitted to continue with construction during the shutdown. But we did want to make the invoice available to you through your online portal, and we wanted you to be able to see the approval. To do that, it's a little bit tricky. The paper application doesn't know who you are in Eclipse. So it actually involves somebody looking into Eclipse to try to find your account and link the two together. It can be a little bit tricky, and we have had a backlog. I think we're pretty much through it. And by the end of tomorrow, anything that was submitted before March 13th, you should have received a response on either a request for additional information or a notice of approval. Again, if your contractor's license is expired, we'll let you know that it's been approved, but before we can generate a billing statement, the contractor needs to square away his license. There is actually two exceptions to make you aware of. Electrical permits have been delayed slightly. We do expect to be caught up on electrical permit applications next week. And also we've had an issue with subdivisions, and this has to do, it doesn't have anything to do with the shutdown, but keep in mind, we did transfer to a new system that was a major move just before the shutdown, and we transferred 14 years worth of records into a new system. So some addresses that were not established in the OPA database did not make it over. So we're having problems issuing permits under essentially subdivisions. That will be corrected within 2 weeks. So if there's been any delays due to a subdivision address, a newly created address, then please continue to be patient and it will be fixed within the next 2 weeks. Okay, inspection services. So contractors must still call for inspections for all permitted work, including if they're operating under a state exemption or a waiver. Work continuing under a city approval or a make safe permit. So no matter what it is, if the contractor is permitted to continue working, he still must call for inspections. We do have the automated voice response system that the contractor can call to schedule the inspection, or he can go online and use the Eclipse system to schedule the inspection as well. L&I may not be able to send an inspector depending on the hazard level or some other conditions. However, schedule the inspection, somebody from L&I will respond and let you know if we can't make it, and if under the specific circumstances, we can accept alternate documentation. So depending on the phase of construction, we may be able to accept photos or an engineer's report. And we will provide that information upon scheduling. Okay, emergency repairs are handled a little bit differently. And again, there's a form on the website for this. So emergency repairs, you make the repair, you have to file your permit application within 3 days of completing work, and that is by code. So within 3 days, you go online, make your permit application. It's something that would be processed in just a day or two. Again, these permits actually are being turned around pretty quickly because the volume is lower than normal. But then once you get your permit, we need proof of the repair work. So we need photos or video that we can review to confirm compliance with the code. And this is limited to repairs of singular systems or components. It's really intended for like plumbing leaks, roofing, that kind of thing. We have received some requests for alterations, and that would not be eligible for emergency services. And it also does not apply to permits obtained prior to March 13th, which is when we rolled this out. So essentially, if you're trying to get an inspection on work that was performed prior to March 13th, this isn't the avenue that you would go through. It's strictly emergency repairs, a lot of plumbing permits. But we do know that there was a backlog of inspections. So I'm not sure exactly where we are with this backlog, how far we've gotten. But again, we launched a new system on March 15th. So folks may have tried to call for inspections, but didn't get through, system glitches, demand, whatever it might have been. The good news is we have a record of all those requests or those attempted requests. So our construction inspections division has been going back through those records to follow up with each request. And the contractor will be contacted with additional instruction. If there is a critical deadline and you can't wait for L&I to contact you, then do email the code issues mailbox. The code issues mailbox should be used for the requests related to construction waivers or critical inspection issues. It shouldn't be used for things like permit escalations. We do have standard channels designed for that. Again, the idea is to get the issue to the right person as quickly as possible. And we also get a lot of requests on certificates of occupancy. If we did the final inspection, if we performed the final inspection and you didn't get your piece of paper, then that's very easy to address. Again, just contact us through code issues. If the project is actually mostly complete and there's just minor work to be done, you can contact the code issues at phil.gov mailbox to request an exemption to continue and then also receive your CO. Okay, permit expirations. So no permit or permit application will expire during the shutdown. So if you've been asked for additional information and you were only given 60 days to respond, or you have an invoice and it states you need to pick up the permit within 60 days, or you have a construction permit that's set to expire, we are not expiring any permits or permits applications during the shutdown. And likewise, for appeal purposes, all of those timeframes have been frozen. So what does that mean? We do fall under the state law, the State Uniform Construction Code. So we are waiting to see if the state is going to issue a policy on extensions. As far as I know, they have not yet. But if they don't, then L&I is prepared to make a determination on the blanket length of an extension once the construction activity recommences. I mean, that will really depend on how long we were shut down and how long we need to recover. So what is reasonable? But just know that we will be reasonable and nothing will expire during the shutdown. Now, that being said, our system is designed to automatically notify you when your permit application or your permit is about to expire. So you may continue to receive those notifications, or you may start to receive them. Please don't be alarmed. It's very difficult to change the coding around it, so we might not be able to stop them from going out. But you can just ignore it, and especially if your permit's already been issued, because there is a fee associated with that, and you don't want to pay that fee. Okay, so again, Eclipse has been really our connection to the public, and we're really grateful for it. It's brand new. We did plan on a slower, more gradual rollout, but here we are. So again, we are conducting information sessions on a regular basis, at least once a week. The registrations are available at phil.gov/LI. In addition, we have help videos and instructions to help you through some things. You do want to make sure that you review the service page for your permit type. Ellen and I reorganized the website a few months back, and I think it's really nice now. Everything's organized by permit type. But what we find, and I think it's just human nature, is when things become digital, we stop using our brains to some extent. So you just want to make sure that you're thoroughly aware of all of the requirements, and that even if Eclipse isn't pinging you for something, if you know it's required, then submit it. This is especially true for other departments that are conducting reviews. What we're finding a lot is applications are getting rejected from, say, the Historic Commission just because you didn't submit the right information that they need. And that is listed on their webpage. So just make sure that your application is complete. I don't know how many contractors we have in the audience, but there is an issue where the contractor is not necessarily linked to the license. There's nothing that you can do about it. If you are experiencing this, you probably know what I'm talking about. We have a form on our website just for this because it's very easy to correct and there's nothing that you can do about it. So if you are a contractor and you are experiencing this, then please submit the request to us. I actually handle the requests. I review them every morning. That's the first thing I do in the morning. And also, if you're a contractor, if you can't see any of your permits issued on paper, then contact Ellen and I. You're probably not linked to your license. If you can see some but not all of your permits, then also contact us. But again, this is really related to contractors. If you're the applicant, you were never intended to see your paper applications on through your web portal. If you have cause, if you have a need to see it, then we're certainly willing to adapt it, but it is something that we have to do. It does require a person to go in and make modifications. So if you need it, then we're more than happy to expose it to you, but you don't have to see it. If you don't see it, it's not a system glitch. It doesn't mean your permit went away. It was just filed on paper and there it will stay. Okay, so this is just a shot of our website, phila.gov/LI, which is where we're trying to put all the information related to the shutdown. So there's announcements and blogs. If you scroll down a little bit on the page, there's announcements and blogs, and this is how we're really trying to communicate to you. It's a lot, and things keep changing. The situation evolves, and we respond to the changes. So do keep an eye on it. Make sure you're staying engaged with the website. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of forms that we created really just to deal with the specific situations that we're experiencing now. So this is a lot to look at, but it's essentially, this is your issue. This is where you should go for help. In some cases, it's 311. In other cases, it's our permit status or code question mailbox. And then everything with an asterisk, they're really forms that we set up, again, just to assist you during this time. The forms will go away once city buildings reopen. And that concludes the formal presentation.
Betsy, there are a boatload of questions in the chat.
Okay.
Do you just want to go inside that chat and pick through?
Sure.
Might be the easiest way. Some of it may have already answered, and you'll know that more readily than I would. So let's see.
Okay.
If you get to around 113, I think that's kind of where the questions start to pop in.
Okay. Do all requests from tenants for repair to their units need to be submitted to L&I before we can fix their plumbing, et cetera? So there are provisions in the code right now for emergency situations. If it's an emergency repair, then your plumber can move forward with the repair. But by code, he does need to submit that permit application within 3 business days. That hasn't changed at all with the shutdown. The services are still available. The only thing that has changed is we are not sending an inspector out for minor repair work. Instead, the plumber will have to take photos or video and upload them to a form so we can close out that permit. When can you file eviction for non-payment of rent? Commissioner, perhaps you can answer this, but I believe this is a court action outside of the jurisdiction.
Yeah, Ellen and I would have no authority there to make a decision or even have an opinion on that. So we cannot we cannot comment on that question.
Plus the courts are closed at this time. So that's no matter what, that's off the books right now.
Okay, so the next question is, how far along in the development process will essential business be granted permits? Only projects already started prior to mid-March. So just to be clear, essential businesses aren't necessarily permitted to proceed with construction projects. So a food business may be essential and is permitted to remain operational, but that doesn't mean you're permitted to commence with construction. Most of the construction projects for which we are getting requests already have permits. They're already in the active. But if something is permitted to continue and it is stuck in our backlog, then we'll certainly do what we can to shake it out. So projects that can actively work can move forward. Do you think that residential construction will indeed be able to resume on May 1st? Any thoughts, Commissioner? I
know there's a lot of pressure out there to restart various parts of the economy, and construction is at the very forefront of that. I would think, and this is personal opinions, not the city's position, that you might first see a resumption of commercial construction, then followed by a resumption in residential work. The large commercial projects, obviously, they have more resources, they're more self-contained, they have a greater ability to maintain social distancing and provide all the necessary hygiene and support necessary to protect their workforce. The smaller residential projects are a little bit more challenged in that regard. So I would think you'd see a two-phase. Commercial construction coming back online, and then residential. May 1st may be a little bit optimistic. You may be looking closer to the middle of May, but I think definitely by June that you'll see a lot of the construction activity back in full force.
Okay, so there is another question, I think that requires your input. What about getting violations cleared? So if a property has a violation that they've cleared, it's a legitimate violation, but it's been cleared, it will show up on the property cert, and it may impact the sale. So is there any service that L&I can offer to clear those violations?
Yeah, I mean, we would send an inspector out or ask for photos or try to do it with someone holding a camera that can transmit it back to an inspector. We'll do everything that we can to close those violations. You know, if you have an issue, contact us and let's see if we can be creative in finding a way to document that the violations are now clear, and we'll clear up the certification statement and allow business to continue as always.
Okay, and should somebody contact that code issues mailbox? Because this, I think, would be something that if the settlement is imminent, then we would consider using these resources. But if it's just, I have violations and I would like cleared today, that would be something a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that the IVR number, Betsy, that you
Okay.
is probably the best way
Okay.
to schedule an inspection to close a violation. Why don't you have the IVR number in your deck, right? That's one of the numbers shown.
Okay. Okay. So it is, yes. So how does someone obtain an approved building permit that still needs a billing statement generated and paid for? If the building permit is ready to go, we've been working through those approvals and the applicant will receive notice from us directly. What we're trying to do is actually link it to your online account. In most cases, folks do have an online account. Contractors, 99% of the time they have them. Most design professionals and attorneys have them. Some owners have them. So we are looking to see if you have an online account so that we can link you to it and you can make payment and download your billing state or download your building permit. If it's something that was already approved prior to March 13th, we're not proactively doing this. You would actually have to submit a request through one of the online forms to get an electronic invoice. Now, that being said, your plans stay at MSB. There is no way for you to pick them up. We can't send them out through postal mail, and we can't accept visitors to the municipal services building. Most employees are cleared out of MSB. There's only a few of us here. So the plans will stay with us until the building reopens. But if your project is permitted to continue, then we will pass them along to the inspector who can bring them to the job site. So you will get your plans through the inspector if your project is permitted to continue, but if you just want your permit now and you can't actually proceed with construction, then the plans will stay put. And once buildings reopen, we'll focus the first couple of days on allowing people to come and pick up their plans. Of course, I'm sure we'll still have to observe social distancing rules, so it'll probably be by appointment. Okay, so a contractor is having an issue with renewing his license online. I would contact 311. The way the question's worded, his trade license and his commercial activity license aren't linked. That's not something that would occur usually with a renewal. So I would contact 311. They do have a dedicated L&I pod that can assist with this. And if they can't solve the problem, then we actually have a dedicated support unit that they'll pass it along to. But more than likely they can help him. I don't think it's a link with the commercial activity license. I don't know if he has a tax issue or something like that that's preventing renewal, but 311 can assist him. Is there a small team of L&I staff who can manually issue permits for those who are not able to complete this online? The answer is no. Our staff is working remotely. They're all working from home. I think that we're doing a pretty good job of assisting people to continue business through the online portal, but we cannot set up appointments. That would actually sort of undermine the effort. We can't set up appointments to manually process permits. And we also can't accept permit applications through postal mail. There's many challenges with payment when you send it through postal mail. Once permits are issued, would it be possible to begin work without the initial inspection? No, you have to call for initial inspection and you should only continue if you're giving that authority. So proceed as normal unless it's one of the emergency repairs that we talked about. L&I still offering inspections through the special hotline number. I'm not sure what that is, but we have an automated voice response system where you schedule the inspection over the phone. Is it possible to submit drawings for permits yet? And if so, will they be reviewed? Yes, you can submit permits. If you have drawings, I would encourage you to file online because again, now is probably the best service you'll ever receive from L&I because volumes are low. If you're filing your plans electronically, I do encourage you to look through the e-plan standards. We've been very lenient in what we're accepting because we understand a lot of people have paper plans already. They need to get them in, but it's definitely not aligned with our current standards, our published standards. So if you are going to submit plans, please review the standards before you submit online. And when will they be reviewed? We're reviewing them as they come in. So we are adhering to our service level agreements. It may be 5, 10, 15, 20 days, depending on the scope of work. However, given that volumes are low, I think you could expect most permit applications to be reviewed within a week or so if you file online. What is the turnaround time for amendment plans? So first of all, you need to file, I don't know if this is in reference to revised drawings that are in response to a request for additional information. If you mailed in, you have to allow time for the paper transfer plan. So I would still expect the same like 20-day review time, although again, it'll probably be much less, but keep in mind that your courier has to deliver it to us and then the examiner has to pick it up and then the examiner has to return it to us. So that's a lot of moving around, a lot of movement. And our examiners also need to limit the number of trips they make to MSB because they are also acting under the stay-at-home order. So if it's an amendment though, you should file that amendment electronically. Normally an amendment is 20 business days, although there was a code change to process in 10 if it's something that's due to a field condition. I don't think that really applies right now, but But the standard review time is 20, but again, I think you'll get that much sooner. Regarding a city certification for a sale in a condominium building, if there are a building violation or a violation on different unit in the building, will these violations show up on a city cert for a unit that is transacting? So basically, will violations on one condo unit show up on another? And I have with me Sheree Ola. Many of you may be familiar with Sheree, and she will answer that question.
So it's actually not supposed to show up on the cert, but it has been, that was put in as a bug and it's being corrected.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like we have an Eclipse bug that we are working on. Is there anything that we can do if the sale is imminent?
Well, that was my question for you later.
Okay. Okay, so we don't have a clear answer on that yet. It's a bug where violations for one condo unit are showing up on another, and we are working on it with our vendor. How are rental license applications being handled? I have several clients who have attempted to apply for a new license, but have been receiving error messages on the LNI website. They've sent emails requesting an update, but have not received a response. Okay, so I can't really answer your specific question. Rental licenses are being handled online as they were before the shutdown. Most of our license activity actually happened online before the shutdown. If your client is having a specific issue, then 311 really is the source. I don't know why the emails would not be, you wouldn't receive a response to the email, but I would say, again, have them call 311, and if it needs to be escalated, the 311 LNI pod will do that. Okay, we cannot answer any questions on gas meters or water meters because they are outside of the purview of LNI. If you're ready for a close-up, can builder send photos of MEP installed to move on to the next stage? I would say that is an exemption that you're asking for, and you need to submit that request to code issues at phila.gov. Same thing, final inspection to close out permits for a clear UNO. It's one thing if final inspection already occurred, then, and you didn't get your CO, it was delayed, we can certainly process that. But if you're asking for a final inspection for a residential project that's substantially complete, you need to submit that request through code issues at phila.gov. Are realtors still able to obtain online city certs for commercial purchases in the same manner? I think that the city certs are far improved right now. So yeah, you can still go online, create an Eclipse account, and file your certification application. Commercial is actually being reviewed in 1 to 2 business days right now. Our service level agreement still is 10 business days. We haven't changed that, but we're getting to them much sooner. How do you resolve if your Eclipse account has been illegally associated with another contractor or entity? Well, I'm going to tell you to email me directly at elizabeth.baldwin@phila.gov with that information, and I will look into it. How can you acquire a PWD sign-off stamp that otherwise would be obtained over the counter in person? Again, we can't really speak to the other department procedures, but I can tell you what I know about their procedures. So PWD, right now, all of their processes are established electronically, all of their permit approvals. So for stormwater management, you can still submit electronically and they're continuing to review. Act 537, same thing. And also for availability of connections and utility plan. So they are reviewing all of those plans electronically that come through Eclipse. Now, if it's for fire suppression, they are not providing any, they're not performing any new hydrant tests, obviously. I don't know if they're providing any new data over the phone, but if you've already received information from them on the flow test for a fire suppression permit, then you can actually fill out a form and they'll approve that in person. Now, if you're talking about permits that you've received at the PWD counter here in the Municipal Services Building, they are not processing permits. They're doing it for emergencies. So if you have, say, the demolition of an imminently dangerous building, then they will process a discontinuance permit as an emergency. But most of their permit services, as I understand it, are not operational at this time. That being said, you really don't need any of their permits anymore, with the exception of demolition, the water discontinuance permit. We're all relying on the utility plan for PWD approval. You don't need, say, a street opening permit in order to get an L&I permit. For those permits that are issued in the footway, so for instance, if you're doing a curb trap replacement or something like that, Eclipse is now set up where we automatically issue the footway permit with our permit. So with the exception of discontinuance permits, you do not need any PWD permits to obtain L&I permits. Okay, I'm not sure what request form, but we will send out these slides and you can see the summary table. In addition, you can go online, phil.gov/LI. We hope to have a similar table posted by the end of the week. But in the meantime, all of this information is actually available in one form or another. So you can review the announcements as well as the blog posts to see where you go for which activities. Okay. The project is finished and the final inspection has been scheduled before the shutdown. Are they still in queue? Would they need a physical inspection or will alternative documents possibly be accepted? You will need to email. So essentially, if they are in queue, yes, our construction inspections team is working through anything that's in queue. As far as what they're going to need to close it out, the construction inspections team will have to evaluate that. It really depends on the state. You can't, for residential projects, we have to do the final inspection, but they may be able to accept alternative documentation to demonstrate compliance. So I'm sorry that's not more clear, but essentially you will need to email the code issues mailbox if you have any questions on that. But do know that we do have a listing of everyone that tried to make an inspection and we're working through those. Can single trade work in a home if the tradesman is by themselves? I think any work is by exception. So emergency repairs are permitted to continue. And any work on a residential property or any other type of work, you need to submit to code issues to make sure. For building, okay, I think this is the same question. Basically, what happened to things that where the final inspection was, oh, okay, so you're actually asking the building was ready within a week after the shutdown. I guess that, I don't know if that means work continued, but again, email the code issues mailbox to see how we'll handle that. If the inspection is already in our queue, then we will certainly honor it and figure out how to move that forward. But if you did not call for an inspection prior to a shutdown, then that is something that we'll have to review on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so who do we contact when commercial activity license is not connected with a trade license? I'm not entirely sure what that means because in order to get the license, you need a commercial activity license. So if it's a case where, say, a plumber has a plumbing license, and then he's also going to work for another company, he should file an amendment to his license to link to that company. And we require a notarized letter from the company verifying that the plumber is employed by that company. So if that's what we're talking about, then it is an amendment. If there's some issue where the trade license, right now, the link between the trade license and commercial activity license is broken, I'm not aware of that issue, but call 311 if it's something where you're having a technical problem with Eclipse. And then I think the third one would be if somebody is trying to make application, an Eclipse, a permit application, and they don't see their license in the pull down, that's something different. And again, there's a special request just for that. It's actually called like, help, I can't see my trade license. And they're the requests that we review every morning and make sure that they're linked. So they're the three scenarios that I can think of. If I didn't hit on that, then I would definitely call 311. They've been working in Eclipse for a long time, so they should be able to help. Okay. So Commissioner, I think this is maybe one that you can help with. The question is related to we're moving forward with processing permits. Do we have any plans to provide inspections if everybody starts construction at one time? How are we going to handle the inspection requests when we resume?
Yeah, so right now we have about 25% of our inspectors are working. We are coming up with a rotation plan. So very shortly, we will be at about 50% capacity. And hopefully by the time everything resumes, we can work this up to close to 100% of our normal capacity. We'll have to look at things as they unfold when the shutdown is discontinued. If we got to make arrangements for third-party inspections or for documentation as opposed to a physical inspection, we will certainly do that. We'll come up with whatever creative ways are necessary in order to keep the process moving forward. So this has created an unprecedented situation for us. We're willing to look at alternate ways to achieve the goal, which is to document that the project meets the building code. So hopefully with ramping up the number of inspections we have out there and considering that we'll add in third party and self-certification to a certain degree, I think we'll be able to handle it.
Okay. Okay, so there's a question regarding the inspection number. I honestly don't remember what that is off the top of my head. That is on the website. I think it's 215-255-4040, but refer to our website. And the question regarding the contractor license and the commercial activity license continues to pop up here. I have to tell you, something isn't adding up. I think something's going on. I'm not sure if you're getting all the information, but why don't you email permit services and I'll ask them to look out for that so we can take a look at it. Is a contractor permitted to load materials into a property as long as they don't work? I think no, but Commissioner?
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole point of the shutdown was to try to encourage folks to stay at home. Even though a load-in would not be considered to be construction, it still is a business activity, and business activity is severely restricted at this time. So we all have a moral, ethical obligation to try to reduce the amount of folks that are out in the public that are potentially exposing themselves or exposing others to the spread of the virus. So the answer would be no in that regard.
Okay. Okay, so Matthew, I think the next question is for you. I don't know if this session is being recorded, but if it is, they would like to know when it's being posted.
Yeah, yes, it's being recorded, and we will have notification going out in a future email to folks with recordings of all the other sessions that we have recorded. In addition to that, would it be possible for us to get the slide deck that you guys used today and we can couple that together?
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, and then the last question, I think, is how do we find out more information about the zoning information session in 2 weeks? Check our website. The registration's not up. It will be available. It's a webinar, so there should be a decent number of space. I just want to add, though, it's a 1-hour session that's intended to supplement our eclipse information session. So if you've not yet attended our general eclipse information session, that's a 2-hour session. There's a lot of material that we cover. Then you may want to jump in on that. And then we'll spend the hour, assuming that people are already somewhat familiar with how to navigate eclipse, and talk about the specific changes to zoning.
Yeah, I think we were going to do something. With that eclipse presentation with you guys, but then a virus got in the way, unfortunately. So, anyone have any other questions? That was a lot of lifting right there. A lot of great questions. Thank you for the expertise that you guys bring to the table and the ability to go ahead and just pick through that stuff and to give really good and straightforward answers. We appreciate that tremendously. Just want to hand it over to Stephanie Biello, our current president. So Stephanie.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner Perry and Betsy, for taking the time to speak to our members here and answer some questions. I know when this first happened, Matt and you jumped on a call with us, Commissioner Perry, and you were very helpful, and we thank you for that, and we thank you for joining us today.
We thank you. This was a pleasure and happy to follow it up at some future time. After the members have an opportunity to digest this information, be happy to re-engage. So just let us know.
Thank you.
Okay, so folks, if you could send private messages to me, give us your thoughts about this presentation we had today, and we'll take that and put that into a little collection of stuff that we have going on. Please be sure to check us out tomorrow. We have 2 events tomorrow, so we'd love to see you at the legislative update for the state, and then at the happy hour at the end of the day tomorrow. So thanks to everyone again. Thank you, Commissioner Perry. Stay safe, stay well. We appreciate everything you're doing for us. Take care.
Thank you.